idiot! If you ever considered, not that you have, but if you had, ever considered how a brutal death metal band transforms to somewhat gothic metal band, this is the deal here with this Russian band called Karcinoma. Now, it's a really interesting case considering that this band started already in 1993 and took a few years to release their first album in 1998, and then the band called it quits in 2001. 15 years on hiatus, which is basically explained here as well. And the band is back in 2016. And 2021, fast forwarding to this day, the band has new album out, now as a three-piece band with a couple of session musicians. The style changed from death metal to this one called Gothic metal. On Metal Hubs, this is listed for some reason kind of a Gothic power metal, but I can really agree with the power metal point. I don't know where it is to referring, but who cares? The point here is this is very much a female-fronted Gothic metal act, and one could say it's quite dramatic, it's quite doomy, but most of all it's rather Gothic with its opera music kind of clean vocals. Now, it's not like I have anything against such a combination. In fact, I started to like opera singing with Therion back in the mid-90s when I got to hear some of their early works like Lebaka Califat and all that. And it's what introduced me to more kind of a dramatic metal in terms of incorporating elements such as opera singing, a synthesizer, somewhat symphonic feeling, but also these kind of death metal riffs used. Karcinoma tries in a way to be something like that. For example, there is this lots of used for kind of opera singing. They're like feeling like it's going to this kind of a Nightwish direction, if you will. But it's not exactly that symphonic, that mainstream and all that stuff. And instead of using symphonic orchestrated parts here with the music, it's mostly rather split between these clean vocals and lots of piano and keyboards used, and more like drums and guitars on the background. It's kind of an interesting combination, and in theory this kind of gothic, a little bit doomy music could work well, but unfortunately that's not the case. And as an insult to injury, this second album is way too lengthy for its own good. 66 minutes and few seconds to top of that. So it's not only kind of a hard combination to get into, but it's a drag. It's a really kind of a boring album in so many ways. Now, where to start with? Let's start with the good things this time. Production-wise, this is pretty decent. I mean, there's no reason for me to bitch about the production in terms of how the guitar sound, drum sound, the use of keyboards or lack of quality whatsoever, because everything is pretty okay here. Not maybe the top-notch, not maybe the top producer stuff in that respect, but I mean, I really can't complain about quality or mixing or all that stuff. Even the vocalist seems to know her place. That is, she can clearly sing and all that stuff, different styles even. So, technical point of view, can't really bitch about it. But when it comes to songwriting, and even more so these compositions in terms like how the different parts, different riffs, how the vocals are incorporated in the music, man, that's a little bit different story. Now, first of all, the guitars are way too much on the background. Maybe it's for a reason, because really when I was trying to so hard pay attention what the guitars are actually doing, well, it seems it's more like filler stuff, you know, like more like creating the backbone for the songs. Much like with drums and bass guitar, it's just there to kind of create these patterns. Not so much like this is a riff-oriented or driven music. Sometimes the melodic lead guitars, however, kind of take the stage and, you know, kind of step forward to say like, hey, we're here as well, not just on the background. And then they fade back again on the background, which in my opinion is kind of a two-edged sword. If you don't really have these guitars which are dominating, then it's kind of a force to give more space, more room for the keyboards, piano parts, and obviously singing. But that's also kind of a taking this vocalist on the very, very front. And if your vocalist is not top-notch quality, like so super good that it's worth taking that risk, like in a Nightwish it could be exactly that, then it's not that good idea. And unfortunately that is the second big mistake in my opinion with this album. Now the guitar riffs are maybe filler, but they're not horrible, but you know, there could be so much more happening with the guitar and bass sector, if you will. Drums are probably the most neutral element on this album because they do what they're expected to do, nothing more, nothing less. Guitars, however, in my opinion, they could have taken way bigger role, and maybe they should have taken that role. But now it's more like piano and keyboards taking that part, and in my opinion, they're not doing very well. I mean, they sound so much like some B-grade band, you know, hopping in with some kind of a meaningless piano and keyboard parts, which makes this album kind of sound cheap and cheesy. Now, if that wasn't enough, things just get a little bit worse because of these horrible amounts of different kind of opera singing used on this album. It's not like the singing itself is bad. I mean, technical point of view, I can't really complain. I'm not a singing teacher, so it's not like I can say, hey, she doesn't know her role and all that stuff. But when it comes to how the words are actually pronounced and how they are, you know, put into rhythm, you know, the patterns, how the vocals are like oh, yeah, ooh. And I get shivers like, don't do that. Sometimes, most of the time, I guess, they're pretty okay. But way too often it's like, why? Oh, why? Like, couldn't there be a producer to say, shut the fuck up for a while? No, seriously speaking, I think there is just too much of that. It's like overachieving in a way with those vocals, and they're dominating way too much. Like sometimes the part with just guitars and drums playing, maybe with some keyboard parts or stuff like that, would have been enough. But it seems like there's this constant need for vocals to be on the top of everything, and that is kind of annoying because it's not that good really. It's not so much about voice, once again. It's not so much about the talent with the singer, but the use of certain, like, there's too much, like, ooh, ah, kind of stuff, which isn't that fucking enjoyable. So it actually creates these annoying elements to this album, and the more spins you give it, the more annoying it kind of gets. So there's just too much use of this mediocre, like, I just have to fill the gap because there's nothing really happening kind of a singing, instead of like, yeah, those chorus parts, these leads or these wah-ha-ha parts make sense. So, I don't know. For me, this is somewhat annoying album. Once again, not because of technical things, but because of lack of interesting songwriting. And they are all just way too long. You know, 9-8 minutes songs with like too much, because the songs don't really go anywhere. It's just more about creating these useless filler songs one after another with filler riffs and filler keyboard parts. It seems like everything is some, I don't know, second grade used second-hand material which some other band probably left over because they couldn't use them. And this is the band that is picking up the pieces and making it all work. So I hate to be this negative Joe, but I really don't like this album at all. It's not super bad, but it's somewhat bad. And I couldn't find the links so you could listen to it. There was no Bandcamp page, there wasn't even a Facebook page for the band. I guess in this time it's kind of a blessing. I don't want you to give this a listen. Joking aside, obviously you want to do that, you figure it out. Probably they will be out by the time this release comes out. I'm filming this now 5 days ahead of this actual release date. May 15, 2021. So by the time this review gets out, maybe there are already links you can listen to this music. But for the time being, not so much. So, in case there are not still links you to be found, well, consider yourself lucky. Move on and listen to some other stuff. Thanks for watching the review. Take care and bye-bye.